It's Jen, your functional diagnostic health practitioner and expert, and this week I want to talk to you about how to eat healthy in Asia and all around the world. Now, this week's blog is being brought to you by a special request from one of my Instagram followers. She posted last week a really good question in response to my pictures and my recent blog post about my trip to Thailand that I had up. And this is what she had asked me specifically. So she says, please tell us how you manage the food topic in Asia, gluten, dairy, soy, etc. And also, what do you take to support adrenals during your trips? XOXO. Now, I absolutely love this question because it's about real life applications for healthy living while living your life to the absolute fullest. So if you've been following me at all on Facebook or Instagram or on my blogs, you know that I absolutely love to travel. But feeling at home in my body while doing it is also very, very important to me. So to me, there is no point in traveling if you don't have the health to fully enjoy it. I mean, what is the point if you can't go out and adventure, right? My health is what supports my passion for traveling. If I'm going to invest money and time to get somewhere, especially far, you bet I'm going to make the most of every single minute and seek out every cool adventure to do and take part in while I'm in that special place. Now, I can't say that I've been in perfect health for every trip that I've ever taken. I wish that I could, but life just isn't perfect in that way all the time, right? So when I've traveled with a lower quality of health, definitely the feelings of fatigue, cloudy thinking, or uncomfortableness in my own skin definitely limited my activities that I chose to participate in, or my ability to be present and my overall enjoyment of the trip. Now, I don't regret any of these trips or these moments when I've been in less perfect health. In fact, these moments are the ones that have served as great motivating factors to keep working on my health when I wanted to give up sometimes, and as friendly reminders about why it is so important for me to maintain the health that I have. These moments are really what help to put things in perspective for me and encourage me to want to travel better and healthier. However, my favorite trips and places that I've traveled to certainly correlate directly with how well I was feeling at the time. When I feel at home in my body, have an abundance of energy, and don't feel anxious or overwhelmed, I am much more spontaneous, I am more adventurous, I'm more curious and present to the place that I am visiting, so I absorb more of an experience from that. Now, eating right for my body has played a major role in helping me get back to the healthy place that I'm in today and amplified my travel experiences. Over the past year, I went on a strict AIP diet for 4 to 6 months to reverse my Hashimoto's and to heal from a toxic mold exposure. And now I still avoid gluten as much as possible, and I limit my intake of grains, dairy, sugar, soy, alcohol, and maybe a few other things that are foods that don't really agree with me. So food is not what makes the experience. I am, especially when I'm traveling. Sure, food can add to any travel experience, and I'm definitely a huge foodie at heart, but food does not make the experience. I do. With all that I've dealt with in my health and the various dietary changes that I've had to make to support it, and to get back to feeling like me again, I have learned to not allow food to dictate the experience that I am having. Now, this is super important, right? So if I choose so, I am able to enjoy any city around the world or simply sit amongst friends and still have an awesome time without partaking in foods or drinks that aren't in alignment with what my body needs for me, which looks different for other people. So eating in Asia or around the world according to your dietary needs really boils down to a mindset. Say what? I know, you're probably like, that sounds way too oversimplified or is an oversimplification. But once you get down to the nitty-gritty of why you might indulge in foods that hinder your health instead of supporting it, it really all boils down to mindset. Sometimes we forget that we always have a choice in any given situation. We may not be able to choose what food is in front of us or what will be served at a social gathering, but we can choose how we decide to deal with it, how we perceive the situation, and what we make it mean about us ultimately. So this is what I want to dive into more this week, are some of my best mindset practices and food-friendly tools that have helped me to eat healthy with enjoyment while traveling around the world and doing something that I love tremendously. All right, so I'm not saying that I never eat a food that isn't right for my body, because I have, and sometimes I actually still do. On the rare occasion when I do eat something that maybe I shouldn't, I make sure it's a really conscious choice and that I know how to support my body afterwards. All right. So for example, during this recent trip to Thailand, in the first 24 hours or so, I openly ate some of the local foods and consciously chose to ignore the list of ingredients or to ask too many questions about it being gluten-free or dairy-free, because I wanted to just embrace it all. And I even knowingly ate a local cuisine with some gluten in it, some wheat noodles, and my body really let me know that it didn't like that. So I listened, I evaluated the value of the food in comparison to how I was feeling, which was bloated. I had an upset stomach, I was foggy and tired. And I decided for the rest of the trip that it wasn't worth it. I wanted to feel my best and make the most out of my trip, so I was back on my A game, making sure that my food choices were right for me. I dipped a little bit in the cookie jar, but I got right back on it. However, my traveling partners, on the other hand, kept eating what I wouldn't eat, but not once did I feel left out or sorry for myself. I actually felt quite the opposite. I was confident, energetic, proud, satisfied, and joyful about my food choices because my body was feeling great and it was letting me know. So why do we use food to fit in? Let's ask ourselves this question, because this is a really great question to ask when we're feeling challenged to make a choice between eating right for yourself or eating what everyone else in front of you is eating. And the reality is that our friends, family, and coworkers won't disown us if we don't eat what they're eating, right? What comes up for you when you ask this question? So maybe if you ask yourself this question, some of the things that come to mind is, I don't want to make a scene. I've had clients literally tell me that before. I don't want to be that person who asks for gluten-free or dairy-free, or I'll feel guilty or disrespectful if I don't eat what is provided. Everyone else is eating it, so why can't I? There's like a victimhood that comes around with it. You know, in my personal experience and in working with my clients, I find that these responses tend to come from a place of lack, meaning there is some other void you're feeling in your life that actually wants to be filled, and you're trying to maybe use food for that. So when we tap into our well of fullness and satisfaction, that is actually all that we need. So when we fill ourselves up with goodness, the desire to eat foods that aren't right for us slowly starts to diminish and can almost disappear completely. Now, this goodness can come in the form of eating foods that actually do make you feel good, that give you energy and make you feel proud of your choices, meditating to build up positive energy, or even in the simple acts of taking time for yourself daily, all of which lead to feeling more satisfied in your life and less searching for satisfaction in food. Hence, this is a mindset issue. Easier said than done though, right? So let me give you some practical tips for how you can start to make the shift, and some of my best practices for eating healthfully in Asia or anywhere around the world, no matter where you are. So one of my number one favorite things is the Find Me Gluten-Free app. Now, this is a handy little tool that has helped me find yummy places to eat in some of even the most remote locations. Although it didn't list a lot for specifically Thailand, I was surprised to see how many gluten-free friendly options there were in Hong Kong. This app always gives me options so that I can guarantee at least 1 or 2 meals a day will be for sure gluten-free without having to ask too many questions or put in too much work to find it. It literally takes some of the guesswork out of eating gluten-free no matter where I am in the world. Now, my next tip is balancing back at home. Because I love to travel so much and let loose a little bit when I do, I make sure to create as much balance for my body when I'm at home. I abide by my dietary needs 100% when I'm at home. If I have an upcoming trip, I load up on lots of sleep, I hydrate a ton and reduce or avoid alcohol altogether, knowing that I'll get less satisfying sleep while I'm away and probably be dehydrated from flying, and I'll want to indulge in a few cocktails on vacay, right? By creating this balance and consistency at home with my health, then my less than perfect habits while I'm traveling won't have as much of an effect on me, right? So my third tip for you is I voice my needs. I am confident that I can find something to eat on practically any menu, and this is the same confidence that I aim to teach my clients. Modifications might be in order, but who cares, right? Being that person who asks for gluten-free doesn't bother me anymore. It used to a little bit, but because feeling good in my own skin is much more valuable than that short-lived embarrassment by asking a bunch of gluten or dairy-free questions. Now, the more that I have voiced my needs, the stronger my voice has grown. And every time I voiced my food needs, my family, my friends, or the server, my voice grew even stronger, and I was more supported by them, and I was greatly rewarded by my body every time I ate something that was good for me. Now, my next tip for you is to choose consciously without guilt. As I mentioned before, sometimes I knowingly eat things that I probably shouldn't, like the dish with gluten from Thailand. But before diving in, I always check in with myself to take a gauge on how I'm feeling in that moment, and if the food I'm about to eat is worth the price that I might pay. If I'm already feeling a little bit fatigued or exhausted from travel, I'm less likely to add insult to injury by eating something inflammatory. But if I'm feeling in tip-top shape, I just might give it a taste. And so most importantly, whatever I decide, I don't beat myself up about it. That negative mindset just adds to sickness in the body, as we know from epigenetics. And if I'm going to indulge, then I'm going to enjoy every bite and savor every single flavor of it and not look back. My next tip is to fill yourself up first. I always make sure that I'm coming from a place of abundance now instead of lack. When we feel lack, it's easy to see food as a way to fill the void, even if it's not really what we're lacking in. When I'm home or traveling, I always engage in activities early in the day that fill up my cup of joy and carry me through the rest of the day. I typically start my day off with a meditation and getting outside or doing some type of exercise. This makes me feel purposeful and full, so that when I sit down to eat, I'm not searching for something on a menu to give my day purpose, essentially, or to fill me up in some other way. Now, aside from these best practices, and to answer my Instagram followers' question more directly, through my travels and by trial and error, I have learned that what things have gluten or dairy or other inflammatory ingredients to them. And I figured this out by primarily voicing my needs. So this time around in Thailand, I actually figured out that oyster sauce, for example, has wheat in it and is used in a lot of Thai dishes. So I learned to ask for dishes without oyster sauce and without soy sauce to avoid gluten. I've also come to know that wheat products in Europe don't really bother me because the breads and pastas are ground properly or fermented the old-fashioned way to break down the gluten, unlike here in the United States. So understanding what works for my body, constantly checking in about what is creating stress on my body, such as food or lack of sleep, work, toxins, etc., and working to alleviate or balance that stress is how I continually support my adrenals, my thyroid, my gut, and my overall health, whether I'm in flight or at home. So just like traveling, life and health is a journey. Once you get to one destination, you'll likely want to go to the next. So I just continue to travel, I continue tuning into my body and making adjustments as needed, which is my recommendation for you. So I hope you guys found this helpful and it's given you some concept of food freedom. in relation to being able to travel the world, even if you have an autoimmune disorder or you're gluten-free simply or dairy-free or whatever else it is. Know that you can go any place, be in any city, in any country, and find things that you can eat and still have a magical time like I did. All right, you guys, I hope you found this helpful. I'll see you next week on the blog.